and welcome from Guadalajara, Mexico to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig. Nathan's guest today is Daniel Peña, co-founder and CEO of LocalAdventures, a startup that connects travelers with elite adventure athletes to provide once-in-a-lifetime experiences around the world.
Hey Daniel, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being willing to do it.
Hi Nate, thanks you for having me here.
So where are we in the world today?
Today we are in Guadalajara, Jalisco, the land of tequila.
So tell me a little bit about your business. What do you do?
I'm co-founder of LocalAdventures. What we do is basically we want to become the easiest way for a LATAM traveler to book the trip of their life, right? So what we do is we find these experiences and local operators around the world. We focus mainly on multi-day experiences. We add them to our website, but we just don't act as a marketplace because we add several value propositions and financial instruments to make that product be able to be purchased by a LATAM traveler.
So what does it look like for a LATAM traveler who doesn't use you compared to when they do use you?
Going back one step in terms of what's the problem, right now, more than 7 out of 10 people in LATAM don't travel internationally, right? So that's a huge number, hundreds of millions of people. And it's not that they don't want to, but the value propositions offered by international companies doesn't fit them. Why? Because internet penetration, because access to credit. Imagine buying a $5,000 trip for a medium-sized family in Latin America. That's impossible. Also, in terms of culture, education, if you haven't traveled before, it's really difficult. So when you have these other companies that act as e-commerce marketplace OTAs, it's really difficult for someone to book an experience. So we're basically not going for the ones that are already traveling, but we want to help all of these people that want to experience going out for the first time to be able to do it, right? So how does that happen for them right now? They have to go into a website, pay with credit card, large amounts, over 1,000, 2,000 per person. They have to figure out by themselves the plan they want to do. They have to check if the guides they are hiring would be safe, if they will speak Spanish, because a lot of the population doesn't speak Spanish too. So it's a struggle for them, and they end up just traveling somewhere inside the country instead of trying something new.
And what are some of the top destinations that people go to, especially people who are going on their first international trip?
Before pandemic, it was kind of different, but now with the borders closed, it kind of changes. But mainly it's Peru, Egypt, Thailand, India, and Canada. Those are like the top 5 destinations we have. It's also related to the price of that countries, or if they are asking for a specific type of visa and the kind of flights you can get. So it's a mix of a lot of things there.
So we'll talk a little more about the business in a bit here, but wanted to dig into your background a little bit. Where are you from originally?
I'm from here, from Guadalajara. So I studied here. I was born here.
Did you always know you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or is it something that came up in your business career?
No, I always had the drive to start something new. Like when I was still like finishing high school and going to college, I started having side businesses. Like my first side business was like honey hives to produce honey, and it was like the most difficult job I have ever had, like because it's dangerous, it's a lot of physical exercise, it's painful, it wasn't a good idea. But yes, I had like 3 other side businesses while I was working corporate before starting LocalAdventures and quitting my job.
How many times a day did you get stung when you were doing that?
Yeah, so imagine, I will tell you this short story. When we had like the beehives near a small town in Mexico, so we went to that town when we were working, and we tried to hire farmers to help us because it's a really hard job to do for just 2 people, me and my co-founder. And no one wanted to work for us, even if we were paying double. because the bees that we purchased, they were like kind of Africanized because they were cheap.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so we were having like 20 stonks a day, kind
that's
of.
terrible.
Yeah, like every week, every weekend.
Well, going from getting stung 20 times to dealing with customer support, it must be a lot easier to now do it today.
Sometimes.
So when going from more of a traditional corporate career and making the jump to start a company, what did your friends and family have to say when you left a corporate job to start a business?
Right. So you may know here in Mexico that, and like 5 years ago, that wasn't something sexy, and that was just like if I was a hippie and I wanted to just do something without sense. It was my parents hated. They basically said, "Okay, I won't give you any money to do that." So that's why we started looking for options. Me and my co-founders, Moises and Sebastian, and we decided that we needed an incubation process, and in the US was better because here we had a couple of incubation processes, but it was harder and with less money. So we entered in Dallas to incubation that we got $30,000 from it. Like it was like the first money we had to start the business. But then instead of trying to use that money for housing, we decided just to spend it on marketing, right? Like to kind of A/B test every strategy we had, every product, every MVP. So then we ran out of money just spending on marketing and testing, and we had to get housing because we were kind of homeless, really. And we basically couch surfed for 6 months while we were there during the incubation process. Yeah, so
What was that like, couch surfing while running a business?
it was crazy because we were living in the living room mainly of one guy. He was really good. He's a friend now. But it was like, yeah, 3 people in a living room, and if he wanted to watch TV, or it was a mess. So we tried to stay as much as we can in the office. In terms of this incubation, the Tech Wildcatters is called in Dallas. They gave you like a little office space. So we tried to stay like 15 hours a day in the office. And also the good thing about it is that other companies had a lot of like networking events and happy hours. So we got free food also. So it was like the housing, free food. And we kind of survived with, just a couple of thousand each month.
It's an important part of the story because a lot of entrepreneurs went through stuff like that when they were first getting started. One of the early podcasts, and we'll link it in the show notes, the founder failed in his first company, lost everything, and actually lived out of his car for about 3 months in a completely new country. Showered at the gym, worked in a Starbucks until he was able to raise money and start going. And now it's a unicorn today. So it's a crazy world of entrepreneurship.
Right. And I think some of the value that you get from that is that you kind of get used to working with scarce resources instead of, if you don't have funding, if you're bootstrapping, like we kind of bootstrapped for several years. And the good thing, there's a lot of bad things as like how fast you can grow. But the good thing about us bootstrapping is that every product had to be successful in order to generate revenue, in order to, for us, continue with the company. So it was a lot of struggling in terms of we need to, this product be successful this same month, have revenue, and continue working like that. So it's valuable. You think about the consumer.
So you talk about bootstrapping and compounding your growth for every amount of sales you bring new in and use that to continue to grow. Tell us a little bit about the journey from Couchsurfing and having $30,000 and kind of going from zero to where you are today. Maybe walk us up actually to the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
And then we'll cover the pandemic.
Yeah, sure. So basically, we started having customers like while we were in the US. And when we had more money to invest, we knew that it was a smart decision to come back to Mexico after the incubation program because of salaries, because of talent, and because of our market was here. So our market was Mexicans traveling within Mexico or outside. So we came here. We basically asked our relatives for a small room where we can work from, and all of our money was just invested in product development, in marketing, in new locals, etc. And we started growing, and we started adding more international experiences because we knew the consumers wanted that. So it was like our organic growth. It was we were growing 3x each year, so it was really good for us while bootstrapping. And then the pandemic came, right? So when the pandemic came, we were in a strong position. We were having like huge projections for next years. We were focusing on getting to fundraise our first formal round. But yeah, then.
So what is it like for a travel company to be growing 3x a year, and then all of a sudden something completely out of your control shuts down the industry for a while?
Painful first. Yeah, very painful. And the thing is that you don't really know when the pandemic started, you don't really know for how long you will have to survive, right? So that was the main concern for everyone in the industry. Like, I don't know if I have to keep cash for 3 months or a year or 5 years, right? So how long will be able to have employees, or should I kind of make my team smaller now? So the first decisions we took, I think it was to make our team feel safe. I mean, it wasn't like maybe the best decision, or it was, I don't know. For us, it was, because we have the same team now. But make them feel safe, like you're not just a number and we're going to make the team small. What we're going to do is like we're going to try to figure out a way to have the team complete without having to firing anyone, and without the need to have to burn a lot of cash flow, right? So that's kind of strategies. Having a really good team that helps you going through that difficult times. I think that was the first priority for us. And then after that, finding a way to continue like the music playing in terms of revenue, even when you have a pandemic, right? Because a lot of the companies in the travel industry, what they did is let's make our team smaller and let's cut 100% all of the marketing spend and all these growth spends, right? So of course, you're going to sell zero, right? What we did is basically let's make consumer focus groups. Let's see what they want. What do we have to do in terms of making them book, even that we have a pandemic? And it was a lot of things about flexibility, about making them sure that they won't lose their money, about some other benefits that we can translate from the operator to the consumer. So we never stopped spending on marketing or trying to sell, and we kept the same team, and we ended up growing 80% during the pandemic.
That was one of the most surprising things when I get your updates, and Mac would talk about it with me, is that we're seeing companies in the travel and the restaurant industry shutting down, and you guys grew 80% through the first year of the pandemic. Why do you think you were able to do that compared to some of the other companies? You said they shut down marketing spend. Like, what made it work for you guys?
I think the main point was just to listen to the customers, right? And I know everyone says that, but at what level do you listen to them? Because we tried new ideas. We tried a lot of things that wasn't working, but until we really make these conversations with the consumers, we found out that a little percentage of them were eager to book something with the risk, with all these things that were happening in terms of getting maybe a best price or in terms of something, right? So we created Local Flex that was completely flexible packages. We created a lot of financial things that helped them book with basically zero money and then start paying in several installments. And that small group of people that was eager to book came to us because the other companies weren't like offering that kind of flexibilities. Now the pandemic has changed that, because Now it's more like a commodity. Flexibility is a commodity in the travel industry. You don't offer that, you cannot even compete, right? But before the pandemic, a lot of companies were very slow in trying to put that on the table.
You mentioned the hundreds of millions of people, the 70% of LATAM that doesn't travel abroad. What kind of financial products do you offer to the people that allows international travel to be opened up to more people that are making their first trips abroad?
Right. That's very exciting because it's been a journey. We started with the multi-day experiences in terms of the consumer able to book the experience with as low as 10% of the price of the experience and being able to pay it in several months without the need of credit card, with local payment methods, and full flexibility in terms of changing the dates or changing the name of the traveler, right? But then we found out that, okay, we're giving 100% flexibility on the experiences. Maybe you have experience in Egypt, but even if you have flexibility on the experience, but you bought a flight with whichever airline, that's going to kill your flexibility because you cannot change like the dates without paying, without having high fees. And so then we knew that we have to package everything on the same product and give that same flexibility with the flight, with the experience, with the insurance, and that's what we've been working on. Right now, we have the product of buy now, pay later, including flights. So imagine you have a family of 5 that want to go to Egypt or Peru or even Canada, right? And the total of that trip is going to be 10,000. For someone that it's medium class in LATAM, it's impossible to pay it with a credit card, but maybe they can pay 1,000, right? And they can book with 1,000, and over a year they continue paying however they want without even need to block like their credit cards and going to OXXO and paying cash. So that buy now the trip for your family and pay it later however you want. That's changing the reality for us right now.
No, it's amazing to be able to open up international travel to more people. And another thing that's really impressive about your business and your organization is you're one of the most sales-driven organizations I've seen. And I think that's another reason why you've been able to grow during the pandemic. And even outside when we were talking, you said, hey, it's Quincena, which is I need to hit my sales targets when most people are thinking, hey, I need to pay people.
Right.
So
right.
Tell me a little bit about the philosophy around sales and maybe some of the structures that you use internally to be able to grow.
Right. So this came because of 2 main things. One, because of bootstrapping, like I mentioned. And the second one, we had a great mentor that he in Dallas when we were starting, that he used to tell us the main problem of every company is just revenue, sales, and growth, right? Because you may have accounting problems, but if you're selling a lot like crazy, you can hire someone to fix that, right? Or you may have marketing problems or whatever. If you're selling and people it's buying from you, you can kind of handle that other trouble. So that was like a philosophy for us, and it has worked for us like for 5 years. That's why we're very revenue driven. That's our main KPI. And what we basically do in the company is that every decision we take needs to be translated into how that's going to impact our revenue. Even if we're talking about tech development or accounting or supply or like this local operator in this country, how is going to impact our revenue, right? Okay, this PR expense, how is going to impact our revenue, or this new developer, how it's going to impact the revenue. So even like indirect investments or expenses or costs, we want to translate it to how it's going to impact the revenue. And after making that decision, we follow up with that to see if that was worth it or not.
And do you have any tips on maybe founders who are just getting started, or maybe they've been in for a year and are trying to really make this sales-driven culture happen in their startup?
Well, something that it's a reality for all of the companies and founders, but we don't really like to apply it, is that every time we hit a goal, there's a consequence, a good consequence. But every time we don't hit a goal, there should be also a consequence, right? I think when you don't make accountable everyone for their goals and you just don't hit it and nothing happens, you're making your culture that way, and no one's going to be worried if you don't hit yearly, monthly, weekly goals, right? So just make everyone accountable, even the founders. Like, we need to lead with the example. So when we don't hit something we said we will, there's like no free card for us, and we are accountable of any consequences we have to deal with, even if we're founders, C-levels, whatever. So that's very important when you're small.
And I think in addition to that, it also makes the objectives really clear for people. I think that's one of the biggest issues for early stage companies when they're getting started, is it's not really clear to the sales team and the salespeople or even the marketing people exactly what they're trying to do.
Right.
And then maybe they've said, hey, we need to sell X in a year, but the steps to getting there are not clear. So being really clear about it and also holding people accountable, I think is really smart and important. Do you have any books, blogs, podcasts, or documentaries you like, whether about startups or just life in general?
Yes. There's a very good podcast called Crossing Borders now, but there's a really good book that is called Why Startups Fail from Tom Insman. He's a Harvard professor. I thought, yeah, I read it. It's really good because it has a lot of things we've been struggling with. What else? That's the usual book of The Hard Thing About Hard Things. I mean,
it's the most recommended book on the podcast.
Yeah,
and it's really good.
It's the usual, but I have to mention that. And basically any books about entrepreneurs and founders, I just love them. Hatching Twitter, also I like it a lot, like the story of these guys, how they build it in terms of the idea, not how to monetize. That's pretty interesting. So yeah, mainly those.
And if you could go back to when you were first starting the business, sleeping on the couches in Dallas, knowing everything you know today, what advice would you give yourself?
I mean, something I didn't realize at that time, but I would give that advice to anyone starting a company, is the team basically is everything when you're starting. I mean, I was able to sleep on a couch. I was able to spend everything on marketing. I was able to take these risks and go through this level of pain because my co-founders were able to do that and they were okay with that, right? We were doing that as a team. And if I had a co-founder that was in another kind of space where they wanted to have a salary or to rent an apartment, maybe that would have killed the company, right? So first the team, and the team in terms of advisors. I think an advice I would give to myself is get more advisors of higher level, right? Because they will prevent you from making a lot of mistakes, and they will build a lot of connections, important connections that you need. So first, it's the team, and also inside of the company, like they say, right? Hiring slow and firing fast, because we had also a lot of mistakes firing slow, and that really hurts the company. So hiring slow and firing fast, that relates also to the team when you're starting, right?
Yeah, it's good advice. So what does the future hold for Local going forward?
Yeah, so we're very excited because, well, traveling is recovering now. So what we want to is basically to distribute all of our proprietary products and financial instruments into the travel industry right now in LATAM, but do it in the next 2 years, right? So be top of mind in terms of international traveling for the LATAM traveler. We want to get really fast we're in Mexico and Colombia, but open a couple of more countries, and also being able to distribute these products also in the B2B side. We have a couple of B2B customers, but we want to explode that line of business too. So yes, it's basically getting this buy now, pay later for flights into other kind of experiences, into other kind of needs for the traveler, and just listening to the traveler.
Well, it's going to be fun to watch you continue to execute, expand to more countries, and see how the travel comes back over the next couple of years. Thanks for taking the time to do the podcast. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Nate. It was awesome.
Awesome.